All right. Hey guys, how you doing? This is Minhas. So this is our, I think, third live. So welcome to our third live for MZ Tech. My name is Mohammed Minhas. We have Zunaid here as well. So Zunaid, go ahead. Introduce
Hey
yourself.
guys, welcome to our live. We're gonna go over today a pretty fun workshop today. Binaz is gonna go over a basic JavaScript and we're gonna show you some coding and stuff. So you're gonna learn the basic JavaScript today. So if you guys have any sort of questions, I know for a lot of you guys, you won't understand, but it's totally fine. We're just trying to just show you guys how JavaScript thing works and to give you guys some basic knowledge about JavaScript. So stick with us. We're gonna have a lot of fun today. All right.
All right. Thanks, Zunaid. Let me start sharing my screen really quick, and we'll get started. Um, Share. Okay, and there you go. Able to see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. You're seeing this empty Facebook card demo, correct? Just making sure that I'm sharing the
Yeah.
correct
Mhm.
screen. Okay. All right. So let's get started. This is a completely empty folder, right? So we'll show you what to do from very startup, right? So let's quickly just create the structure of what we will create. So let's just create the structure. I will create a source file. For those of you who don't know what this is IDE. So this is where you'll write your code. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, and we will use Visual Studio Code, and obviously there are quite a lot of preferences. You can use Atom, there's IntelliJ, but Visual Studio Code is something that most of the people uses, right? So yeah, what I'll do, I'll just create the folder structure. So we have a folder called Facebook Card Demo that we're planning to show you later. So the first thing I created is a source folder, and the way you create it is just click on this icon, and then we'll just create the files, right? So we'll create a file called index.html. So index.html, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And basically this is the presentation layer. So anything that you see, from a visual aspect, it's written in index.html, right? So we'll create index.html, then we will create another file called style.css, and then and then we'll put this under source as well. So let's move it there. So let's just start with these two for now, and then we'll talk about it. So one of the shortcut for Visual Studio Code, if you have to type the boilerplate of HTML, if you just put this exclamation and put tab, you actually get that generated um, generated display that you will get, right? So so just to go over what this is, right? Every HTML, and again, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, starts with this doc type, right? This is usually the entire site. So any sort of website you will go to, you will see this. And then we have a tag called HTML. And the way this works is basically any sort of tag that you start. So for example, HTML, you have to close that tag, right? This is just how the syntax works, and anything you want to put here, basically you have to just continue that, right? So that's what this is. And you have a language called English just to denote it, and sometimes depending on what website you go to, you can set up different languages as well. And HTML breaks up into two parts. One is called header, and one is called body, and we'll go over what that is in a brief, right? So just know in header tag, there's some metadatas, viewport, just the devices width and all of that. You could put all of that. But one thing I want to show you guys is what this does, right? So let's say if I want to call this Facebook card demo, right? So and in here, and I'll just put a div, and again, we'll talk about what this is. We'll just say card for now. Now, if I were to make this um, make this or show this in a website. I like to see, how this works. We want to hook a few more things actually before we do that. So let me quickly copy a few of the things here, and then we'll go with it. Okay. So in here, there are a few things I'm going to post, and I'm going to obviously tell you guys what those are. So in the header tag, you could actually put a few libraries and stuff that you use using a link tag. And for those of you who don't know, link tag is basically just, you could use it as a style sheet. So one thing you will see, just to go over this three, right? I have a library called this font called Lado, right? So let's quickly bring up maybe, how I got that, right? And Zunaid, you could see my screen split, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. So if I were to do an Lado font, there's Google font in here. So you could easily, copy whatever you want, right? So if you were to do select style, you could just copy it from here. This is, what I did, right? For the font that I use. What does that mean? The font is basically, so if you were to see it in here, you see all these fonts are different, right? So the way it works is you basically come up with some sort of a font that you want to use, then you import it. And I'm just showing you how to do that, right? So let's say I selected this font, and
I think the portion of it is we can see it from the right. Yeah. Yeah, it's showing like half of the.
yeah, no, this is gonna show up. I mean, I wasn't showing you that because I'm sharing the screen itself only.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah. But that's not so important as to what this is. It's just what font you're selecting. So again, if I were to refresh, it shows up the link, right? You're just selecting, literally copying this, and we'll show you what to do with that. So that's how I copied that. And there's also something we will use called Bootstrap. Again, Bootstrap is quite popular. For those of you who didn't hear it, it's just a CSS library that makes us, style things much faster. There's some built-in, styles. So we will use Bootstrap. So if I were to go to Bootstrap in here, uh, and if you go to get Bootstrap, and you could see it, right? So there are different ways it gives you. Again, I just copied it from here. Okay, so it doesn't matter. That's that, and I've also used something called Font Awesome that will show. Um, Again, Font Awesome is another tool that we use for some sort of icons, and I'll show you that, right? Let me quickly show you the expected outcome really quick, and then I'll put it right off the screen. Okay, so if I were to, so this is the expected code that we'll write together, and if I were to go live, again, that's an extension that we use. So this is what we're trying to build, right? And for those of you who saw, your Facebook Messenger or something, you will see something card like that, right? So I was trying to just, put something together for us to see. Again, the styles and stuff is not up there. I was just trying to, show something today rather than, just us going through basics. I think just building something together would make it more interesting. So this is our final outcome that we are expecting to show today. So for that, I'll stop sharing the screen really quick and bring this up again. Here you go. So again, this is the expected output that we're trying to put, and that's what I'm going to show you guys, right? So let's continue with what do we have now. So I'll put it here. I'll close this for now, and I'll stop going live, and there you go. Okay, so to coming back to what we were doing, right? I was importing something called title that we'll see. Um, Sorry, there are a bunch of notifications. And the title, and I'll show you where this really shows up. Just bear with me. There are a few other things I want to import. Again, I want to import something called Jquery that you don't really need to know much about it right now. Or which actually we don't need it for now. Okay, so I will also create another folder or another file called script.js, and I'll tell you what that is, right? Script.js. So one thing you'll notice, there are three different files here, right? One is HTML, that again stands for hypertext markup language. JS is for JavaScript. So we always talked about, how your website eventually boils down to just JavaScript, right? Um, it compiles onto JavaScript. So we'll show you what that is. And we have another file called style.css. And this is where, the style or how the colors or how the button will look and all of that will be actually, written here. Okay. So these are three type of files we have, and we'll get started in terms of what to do, whatnot, right? So I have this in the HTML. I'm gonna show you guys how do you actually link the script. So you link it under under body tag. So in their body tag, you right under it, you could create a script tag, and you basically put it under source, right? So this is pretty much it in terms of just the setup itself, and I'll show you guys what to do next, right? So um, let's see. And here, so again, we have this document that we don't probably need. So and then I'm just trying to figure out. Wait 1 second. Revillain Finder, and I'm gonna just open this up with Chrome. There you go. So as you can see, I just showed this, and then we'll basically eventually get to this point. So let's put this side by side, and we'll show you what each of them are doing. Okay. Again, let's look at what we have here. Okay. So I'm gonna quickly snap this so we have more space. One thing you will notice is in here it says Facebook card demo, right? And this is what I was telling you a little earlier. Based on what you put on the title, it basically shows that. So if I wanted, I could name this MZ tag for and then if I were to refresh, you will see that it's MZ tag, right? So that's the benefit of having something in title. So whenever you go to that site, it actually shows you what it is. So if I were to go to MZ tag our site as well, you will see that our title is there, right? Another thing I wanted to show you guys is just the layout of the HTML. And again, as Junaid said, wants to use Chrome, and that's something we'll use, right? From a dev tool point of view, and it's something that's most popular, right? You could use and for those of you who didn't use DevTool before, I'm just gonna show you what it is. So any sort of website you go to, if you were to right click and click on inspect, this thing shows up, right? And I'm gonna just put that on the bottom. In here, you actually get to see all the codes the website renders, right? So you have all this HTML, as I said, right? Every website has this doc type. And again, one thing to bear in mind, as you will see something very similar, right? So for example, this doc type that we wrote in our mini application that we're trying to build is there, right? And it's the same thing as our website. Again, HTML lang eng is basically stands for English, right? That's there as well. There is a body header tag that we used here. So if I collapse this, you will see that, and there's a body tag. So this is pretty standard from a building a website point of view at just the structure of the HTML itself, right? You have this doc type that's called HTML to denote that it's an HTML file. Then you have this header tag and body tag, right? And in there, you obviously, the codes are different based on what you're trying to build. Again, if I were to do the same thing on our little application we're building, you will see the exact same thing, right? You have doc tag, HTML, header, and body, right? So I want to just quickly show you that, and that's for any sort of website. To be honest, if you go to, even if you were to go to google.com, you will see the same thing, right? If I were to do inspect, you will see the exact same thing. Obviously, forget about what all these are.
Actually, we can see the inspect those elements. It's the VS Code is only showing, just so you know.
Oh, okay. I'm not showing the whole screen, am I? 1 second. Let me share my screen then. Share screen, desktop one. How about now?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Oh,
Yeah.
apologies. You should have told me earlier. Yeah, so let me just quickly go over that again then for those of you, who weren't able to see my screen. So I was just showing this three different websites. So this is the website that I just opened up. And the way I opened it up, it's pretty simple, right? You could uh, just go to the file. Let's say in here, um, open, you could use something called open live server as well if you have this plugin. So I'm going to show you that. For those of you who are interested in what this is, I'll show you how do you actually install it. So if you were to go here and type, I think it's called live. Yeah, so live server is basically what you install. This is what I have, and once you install it, you have an option to run this as live. If you don't have that, you could simply open this HTML. So this is the folder structure that we had a little earlier. If you were to just open this up in Chrome, it'll be the same thing, right? I just like to use this because every time you make a change, it refreshes the page for you, right? So what I was saying a little earlier is based on what we put inside this header tag, you actually see that here, right? So if I were to type, again, let's say mz tag here, um, again, see, you saw that refresh as soon as I saved, it shows it here, right? Similar to what you will see in here, mz tag, if I were to open up the header, you will actually see something called title where it says mz tag consultant core, right? Same thing for Google. If I were to open up header, you'll see the title called Google, right? So pretty much, you could just put it, name it whatever you want, and it shows it right on the tab. One interesting thing you could do is you could actually edit it here as well. Obviously, this is not saved, but you could, if you want to play around with it, you could type it here too. So let's say I wanted to change here, just for the sake of it, I could actually change Facebook, right? And as soon as you enter, it changes it. Obviously, when you refresh, it changes it back, right? Because that change is not actually saved. You were just doing it at that instance. So that's what I was showing you a little earlier. So let's get to the meat of the actual coding itself. And again, Zunaid, if anyone asks any question, let me know. Okay.
I will. Yeah.
All right. So I showed you guys a few things. I showed you guys how to come up with this boilerplate of HTML. I showed you guys how to put the title. So we'll go back to what we had a little earlier because we were trying to build a Facebook card. So it's called Facebook card demo. And oh, you guys probably didn't see what we were trying to build earlier then, right? So let me quickly show that as well. So our final product is going to look something like this. So if I were to open up this in Chrome, let's see, or maybe even Firefox, we'll just keep this aside. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just keeping it in a separate browser, so we could actually go back and forth. What do we have? And I'll probably actually put this. Actually, yeah, let's leave it. Let's leave it on the side. So this is what we were trying to build, right? And that's what what we'll do. I'll quickly type up a few things, and I'll go over what we were trying to do at the end, right? So let's collapse this header because again, whatever we needed, we put it. So again, these are libraries that we put. So one is the font, another one is called Bootstrap, and you also imported Font Awesome. And this one gives you few icons, right? So the icon that I'm showing here, add story, again, ignore this design. I will show you how to do that. So that icon is actually coming from Font Awesome, right? For those of you who didn't use Font Awesome, you could look at it. We'll show you that a little later, actually. All right, so given that's done, let's quickly type up few things that we wanna import here, right? Or we wanna put here. So I'll go over what we will do. Everything you want to present in your page itself, you actually put it in the body tag, right? So as you saw, if I put a little div, and I guess div is for divider, basically if I were to create another div called card 2, you see it shows up right underneath, right? That's what div is. There's something called span, and again we'll talk briefly what those are. I just don't want to take up much time today, right? So let's dig in now, right? So we will create the boilerplate that we need, then we'll actually style it. Okay, so there are some shortcuts that I'm going to use, and we'll tell you, how you do that, but feel free to type along, right? So if I were to start typing div and I put tab, due to this thing called emit, right, that I have, and it comes, I think, as a default in Visual Code as well, and other ones you could import it. It actually lets me not type the whole thing, right? I could just type in div, see, and if I put tab, it really closes the tag for me, and I could type whatever I want here. So that's how I created that. I will create few divs, and then we'll talk about what I'm doing, right? Another syntax that I'm going to use something called dot, and I will type in card. What this does, it creates the div, and it creates a class called card, right? You will see that. And we'll talk about, what do you actually do with this? Just for now, know that I'm just naming the divs in a different way, okay? So I'll create another div, and I'm going to call this photo. And again, this is just the boilerplate. You will see everything, that shows up. Then I'll create another div called banner. Again, let's put something here so you guys see, what this are, right? So I'm just literally creating these boilerplates. Div is for division. So if I were to inspect this again and show you and highlight, you see that it takes up the entire width, right? As a default. You could obviously modify how this width are, but I don't really want to go through all the basics. I'm assuming some of you guys might know it, and we'll obviously bring you up from ground up, if you were to join our software engineering programs that we have. But again, just for now, just know that these are divs. It takes the entire width of the screen, right, as a default. All right, so I have banner. I have a div called photo. I have a div called banner. Then I will introduce you guys to something else called UL. This UL stands for Unordered List, and we'll see what that is in a bit, right? And then we'll create li, which stands for list. If I were to do li times 2, it creates 2 lists for me. Again, this is another shortcut for emit, right? So as you could see in here, if whatever I type, so for example, if I were to type, again, our goal is to create this, right? So I will create, I'll just put my name as a thing, right? I downloaded my picture and the banner from Facebook, and I'll show you guys what to do with that as well. Okay. So again, I type my name, and as you can see, it shows up as a bullet, but if you were to see here, you don't see them, right? So we'll show you how to hide those as well. And then the next thing we want to do, we want to put software engineer, right? So we'll put software engineer as a role. Okay, and then we'll actually have something called button, right? Again, button is another it's another how do I say this, like element in a website that you could see. So any sort of for example, if you were to go to Google, for example, right? When you click on search, when you click on search, or you see this Google search, this is a button. I'm feeling lucky, whatever this are all buttons. So I'm going to create something similar to that, and we'll talk about how do you style that, right? Again, this is just the presentation layer. We talked about HTML being just showing how things will work, right? How things will look, and then we'll actually style it to make it look pretty, right? So we just putting the skeleton of the website, then we'll actually style it to make it look like this. Okay, so all right, and after that we'll create another element called button, and this will simply just create a button called add story. Okay, uh, and you see here it shows up, right? At this point, it really doesn't do anything because we're not creating any backend, so to say, but this is there. Okay, we also talked about putting jQuery, and this is needed from a Bootstrap point of view, and you will see that why in a bit, right? So I put this here as well. Again, when you import Bootstrap, you will see that you have to import jQuery that works, right? And jQuery is something we'll always obviously go and talk about in our both of our software engineering course, whether it's front end or full stack. So, just don't worry too much about it for now. Just know that, it's something that we need to use to use Bootstrap. Okay. And after that, now that we have this layout sort of, right, I'll actually copy the images that I need. And again, if you were to go, you could use any image you want. I'm just gonna go to my Facebook and I'm just gonna show you guys how I actually downloaded it, right? So if I were to go to my Facebook and let's see, maybe I gotta just open it up in a new tab. And if I were to go to my profile, this is where you're trying to create, right? So I'm gonna use this image. So again, for you guys to use it, if you don't have it locally, just right click on save image and you could just save it whatever you want. We'll save it under desktop and then we'll go to Facebook card. And here under source, actually, I'm gonna create a folder called static. This is where our static, uh, you know, um, static, any sort of files that we have that are static local, we'll save it, right? So any sort of media, any sort of font, any sort of images, we'll save that here. So again, I click create a folder called static, and in here I'm gonna save this, rename this as a banner, okay? And then I'll save my profile picture as well. So let's see. If I were to go here, view profile, save image as, and I'll save this as profile, right? Again, so I just wanted to quickly show you guys how do you do that, right? If you never had it. So let me just put this aside, and then we'll actually start styling this, right, to make it look better. So again, if I were to refresh this, I have this folder called static, and you could actually view the images that I downloaded, right? What I'll do, I'll just put this under source as a best practice. So I'll quickly drag that and move it there. And then we'll show you what to do with it, right? So that's pretty much in terms of HTML of how this will look like. Rest of it is we'll actually write scripts, right? So this is where style.css comes in. And again, the way you map it, you saw a little earlier, right? I just linked it here. I called it style.css, and just to show you that this works, we could use this, right? Let's say you guys might have had a question of, what do we do with these, right? The reason we created this class, right? And this is one of the attributes that we could use to target these elements. And again, it's one of those best practices to have classes, obviously, for you to style. There are other things called IDs, and we will talk about later. But these are a bunch of attributes that you could target the elements by, right? Again, any sort of website you go to, you will see that as well. So if I were to go to MZ tag, and let's say I do inspect, I'll make this a little bigger. And let's say I were to click on this, right? You will see that H2 tag, it also has a class, right? Any sort of element you go to, you will see it. There are tags or classes that you could actually target the element by. So, it's pretty standard to have something called class. The syntax is class equal that. You could also have ID equal, I don't know, card. The difference between ID and class is class could be repeated, but the ID has to be unique, right? And we'll show you how do you actually target these, right? So, let's say I created an ID called card as well, and I'll show you guys what to do with that. So, let's focus on the actual styling of it for now. Then, we'll talk about some JavaScript and how do you create variables and all whatnot after we actually do this demo. All right. So, let's focus on, what we will do. So just to see if this is working, we'll actually, create, we'll start targeting these elements, right? So again, there is an element body tag called HTML. And let's say if I were to type in HTML and, I were to put overflow hidden, and this is just hiding the overflow, right? And again, if you were to look at what this is, it basically hides, and overflow hidden is X. Basically, it's not overflowing on the right, right? Uh, so if I were to do this, you will see that, you know, it pretty much stays in this place, right? So again, not really needed, but you know, just showing you that you guys actually could target certain things, right? If I were to do background color called red, you will see that indeed our thing. Oh, this is too bright. Maybe let's make it you know, beige or something, right? So again, you see, because we linked our style to our HTML, this sort of style of the colors is shown. If I were to, you know, comment this out, and again, to comment, you just hold Command or Control and slash. If I were to do this and save, you will see that the style is gone, right? So this is how you actually create a link. When you start developing, you might see this. It's very important for you to ensure that your you know, classes are linked properly. You might even run into an issue where you will see that, hey, you're doing everything right, but you're not seeing. So this is how we actually teach you from ground up, right? We make sure just the basic is working, then we actually start doing more style. So, you know, if you ever have to debug, you know that at least your connection to your files and stuff are working as expected, right? So I'll go back to the style, and we'll basically just, you know, type few things, and I'll again talk about what they are. So HTML, just to hide the overflow. And again, if you ever, you know, see it here, I have this reference called, you know, that fetches, you know, what this MDN reference are, and I could, you know, tell you guys that later. But you could always open up the MDN reference, and here, if you were to see what overflow does, it basically talks about it, right? The overflow access property says what shows when content overflows the block level, you know, elements, right, whatever, right? You could just read all of that. What it does, what it doesn't do. So I just put it there. And then we'll actually, you know, work on body tag, right? So again, body tag is this portion of the website, and this is the meat of how the website looks like. If I don't have body, I'm really not gonna have anything. So if I were to comment this out, you will see that this is blank, right? And again, this is just a comment, so that shows up. But you know, that's what it is, right? So anytime you want to create something, it has to be inside the body tag. Okay. So we'll have some styling for body tag as well. So again, I'll type in body, and for those of you who don't know the syntax, you basically just type the element or the class name, and you know, open up with curly braces. So you put body, and then open it up in curly braces, and then you could put whatever you want there. So remember, we imported a font called Lato, and that's what we're going to use now. So when you want your and let me just type that up, then you will see, you know, what I really what impact it makes, right? So there's a font called Lato that we imported, and then if not, we'll do sans serif. So I don't know if you guys noticed it. Just look at it here. If I were to comment this out, you see that the way the font is looking is gonna change when I make this. You see, this is a slight change, but you could, you know, it looks prettier in my eyes, right? Again, depending on what company, you know, you work for, or what sort of project you work for, you could, you know, you might be given some requirements to use some sort of font. So that's why we're showing this as well here, right? Just to show you that you could indeed change the font. Just to go over the syntax of this, you use something called font family to and something, this is something you could see as well. So when you do inspect and you click on one of this, and if I were to open up the style, just expand it a little more. If I were to open up in style, you will see that this body tag has something called font, and it's using a font called Lato that we imported, you know, a little earlier, right? In here. So this is the font that we imported, uh, and that's what we get to use. So if I were to untick this, you'll see that the font do look different, slightly, right? It makes your application look a little better, right? All right. So after that, you know, we'll talk about, you know, other stuff, right? So let's go back to our style. We have body tag. Again, I'll talk about what this does. If I were to do margin 0, look what happens, right? You see that it pushes everything to the side. What did this do? It basically, as a default, your website comes with some styling, right, that they recommend. So if I were to comment this out, you will see that if I were to select an element and go to the body tag, slightly on the bottom side, in here you see there is a margin called 8, right? This is where we're shutting off. So if we were to enable this, you will see that margin is gone, right? So that's what we're doing. As a default, it's one of those best practices to just turn off all the default stuff that we don't really need, right? So if you want your application to open up as a whole without any sort of margin and stuff, you could do that, right? So this is the reason why we're using this. So if I were to do margin 0 again, I'll show you. So you'll see everything gets pushed to the right of the edge, right? Again, this is another benefit of using Chrome DevTool. You get to actually see the designs of or just the layout of how your elements are taking place, and it obviously switches based on what you select. I'm just showing you that from a body point of view, we're just removing all the margin. Okay, and next we'll actually put something called background color. Again, this is what we were using a little earlier. So if I were to do background color called, let's say, black, it will make the entire website black, right? Obviously, our font color is black. That's why you can't see it. So let's say, we use gray or something, right? So depending on what you put, the color changes. So we'll leave it as white for now. Again, there are various ways you could type colors. See, so there's something called hash codes that you could use. If I were to do FFF, that's also white, and I'll show you guys what this is, right? Just to go over, for those of you who don't know. There are different ways to target colors, right? So let's say FFFF, because there's obviously a color called this. Maybe I'll bring this F4, F4, F4. I'm just showing you as a color picker from Google. So in here, you could actually select, let's say, FFF, right? If I were to put this, again, it switches to default color. So notice what happens if I were to change this. See, if I were to drag this, you'll see these colors are changing, right? Again, I don't want to go too much in detail. Just know that this is a hexa code that basically you could copy, and you could use any of these, to be honest. But majority of the time you either use hex or RGB, right? RGB stands for red, green, blue, because you could somehow come up with colors based on these 3 colors, right? So I'm just showing you guys that there are various ways you could use it, and you will see us doing that as well. So if I were to type white, by default it understands what white is, this colors, and you could see that it really understands it. And if I were to highlight over it, it shows you that it indeed is being compiled down to FFFF, right? So and another thing you could notice, just to show you that indeed it is the hex code. If I were to click on body again, right? Let me save this, and then in here, right, you see this white color. You could actually change it here as well, right? So again, but if you were to change it here, you could make your modifications, but as soon as you refresh, similar to what we did with HTML, it basically resets, right? So by default, the website understands these colors because it compiles onto its color code. Again, I have this color picker as a plugin. You could install it in VS Code. You could do that as well, right? So you could switch these and as much as you want, really. But let's go back to what we had, and we'll type in white. Okay. I will actually. How are we doing with time, Zunaid? Do you want me to type in all the CSS, or should I just copy and just go over the?
Yeah, we have time.
Okay. Okay. So I'll continue with what we have then. Um, because there are a lot of CSS stuff, and I don't obviously bore you guys and typing it one at a time. So let me just do this actually. Let me just copy these, and then we'll go over what what all of them do, right? So again, this is where the magic happens, and I'm just gonna copy all the stuff that I prepared for you guys, so you guys actually see uh, me explain rather than type and see me type, right? So in here, and again, I will show you guys what I did here. So let's go back to index and remove these, and I'll show you guys why that is, right? So if you were to remove this, and what did I name this in style? Let me see. profile. Oh, it's called cover. So I previously called this cover, but let's call this banner for now. And you will see that as soon as I actually type banner in, and again I'll go over this, you could actually see what each of them are doing, right? You see that there's an image in the background and there's a profile, and we'll obviously show you how did I achieve this, but the magic is from a CSS point of view, right? So again, if I were to hide this, you will see that you don't really see anything, right? You will see that boring template that we came up with, but as soon as I enable CSS, you will actually see the design of it. So that's the power of CSS, and it's something very important that you need to get used to, right? So let's quickly go over what I've done, then we'll move on with the next thing. Okay. There were some tags called anchor tag, and we'll show you what that is in a bit. But let's just remove this for now. And again, anchor tag is just a tag. It's basically for links. So in here, if there's some sort of decoration, let me just show you guys actually, so it'll be easier. Let's say I had an a tag, right? Um, in here, and I call it, I don't know, a tag or something. In here, you see this, this a tag, and maybe let me move it out of the way so it's easier. Um, a tag again stands for anchor tag, for those of you who don't know. So if you were to just look at the research, I will recommend you guys to look at MDN, right? A tag, or actually there are different ways you could use, right? So there's also a website called W3, so you could do a tag W3, and it basically goes over those, right? There are various websites you could visit to see the documents. So either use MDN or maybe this HTML or W3 school, you could use that as well. uh, so this anchor tag, what it really does. So if I were to just show, maybe I'll put this here actually. So let's say I put an anchor tag called view profile. So let's say someone is interested in viewing my profile, whoever wants to, right? I will show you guys how to do that, right? So anchor tag, again, just like all the tags, you open it up and you close it, and anything that you put in the middle basically shows up as that text, right? So it takes some parameters. One is called href, and this is to provide a link that it will go to. So if I were to go to facebook.com/Minhas93, if I were to put this here, I'll show you guys what it does, right? One thing you will notice is this view profile. If I were to just hold command and click, it opens it up in my profile, right? This is how you actually direct people from one website to another website, or whatever the case may be, right? If I were to put instead of, and again, it shows view profile as whatever I put here, right? If I were to go to another website, I don't know, let's say instead of view, or maybe let's say view profile is fine. Let's say create another anchor tag called view site, and let's say I want to go to mz tag, right? mz tag dot us, and I could delete this as well. Um, you know, you could see that, right? So if I were to click on, hold command and click, uh, it brings me to that. So right, so this is how you actually could put external links, internal links, we'll talk about all of that in details. But just know, I wanted to show you guys how you actually put an anchor tag, right? If I were to put a text decoration none, you will see what that does, right? This is why I put that here. So you will see that any anchor tag by default comes as an underline, but it really looks ugly, right? In my opinion as well. So if you put text decoration equal none, it actually removes any sort of decorations that you might have for those. So that's that. Let me actually start putting these in a div so it looks better. So let's say div, and again, div is just an easy way of putting things in different spot, so in different line. So let's say I put that here, and I want to create another div, and we could actually import those in here. Okay, so and we'll obviously talk about what these does. So let's quickly probably just, since we're in A tag, let's probably copy those and uh, make some adjustment to what we're seeing. Okay, so let's say I want to change the color of this font, right? So the way you change it, you type in color, right? And again, once you type it, you could actually name it. Let's say we want to use blue or something, right? You see that as soon as I import blue as a color, it changes the font. It changes the color of the button, right? If I were to do background, um, background, let's say this. You see that it makes the background into that, right? So this is how you pretty much build up, uh, you know, your buttons or anchor tags. The button itself actually comes up with this wrap, so we could use that as well if need be. And I'll just show you guys, this button, uh, what it does actually, right? So if I were to look at button and if I type button HTML, actually a bunch of sites shows up, right? So if we were to look at, again, let's say the V3 school, uh, you could actually see what it does, right? There are various things, and for those of you who never worked with HTML before, I'll just show you guys how you actually research and do stuff, right? So if you were to open up button itself, you could see the syntax of how to use it, and as you could see, it's very similar to what we use, right? Again, you could also put the type called button um, as a best practice, right? It doesn't really change how things are, but you could do that as well. Once you put that as a button, though, you could see the different style, right? When you select over it, it shades it a little darker and all of that. So that comes as a default, right? There are some props that you could pass. For example, if I were to type disabled here, right? So, and you could see how to use that actually. If you were to type disabled, you will see what that button does, right? You see that the button is all grayed out. So these are just different props that you could use. I'm just showing you. So when I delete that, it's enabled again. Um, Another thing you could use, and again, we'll go over this in a detail, in a briefly. Let me also, since I forgot to add a class name, because I do have some designs for class for this button. So, um, and I name this contact. And again, as soon as I type that, you'll see that all the styles actually popped up, right? Uh, so, and then let's quickly go over that, then we'll go over what each of these are. Another thing that you could always use, you could use, class names. Uh, so, oh, actually, because I am overriding it, you won't be able to see that because I am overriding stuff here, right? So, let's say we want to make this buttons something interesting. Um, I don't know, let's say this color or something, right? You could make the background color like that, and let's say we want to make the color black for the time being. You could do so. Now let's just talk about just the styling of this anchor tags, because currently this looks very ugly, right? So there are a few things I'm going to do, and I'm going to tell you guys what I'm doing, right? So you could use something called font size. This basically controls the size of this element. So if I were to open up inspect and just select this, again, I have to comment this out because I'm not using this. By default, anchor tag has certain things, right? Um, and maybe it will be helpful if I just open this up in a separate thing, so you guys could actually see it better. So let me do that, and we'll just go back and forth. So if I were to select this and select any of those elements, you could actually see the properties that it has, right? So it has something called text decoration. And again, you could turn this on and off to see what each of them are doing. Color makes it, black, and then background makes it this color, right? Uh, so by default, there are some other stuff that you could see what it does. But if you want to change how the size or the color, uh, and if you don't want to use the default browser settings, you could actually uh, put your changes here. Okay, so, and I'm just gonna put this in here as well. So if I have to show you guys something else, I could show you in here, but just to see live changes, I'll have that, okay? Uh, so let's talk about font size now, what that does, right? So if I were to do font size, and again, there are different ways you could increase the font size, but we'll use something called pixel, and we'll go over what that is. If I were to do 12 pixel, it basically makes the size 12 pixels smaller, right? Again, so if I were to just comment this out, you will see, what it does. You see, it was pretty big before. If I were to do this, it makes it a little smaller. Now let's say you want to put some space right next to it. As you can see, view profile, it takes up all the space on the side. Let's put some spaces around it. For you to put spaces around the inner element, you use something called padding. Okay, so if I were to do padding and colon, let's say I put 10 pixel, you will see that it actually has 10 pixel size, right, on both of them. So there's 10 pixel from here. So if I were to just let's go here. If I were to inspect, you will see what that does, right? So in here you see that there's something called padding, and if I were to expand this, you see that it says padding top is 10 pixel, padding right. So everything, there are 4 ways you could add padding, and when I say padding, it basically shows you that, right? When I were to highlight over it, you could see on the left side that yellowish highlight you see, it basically what that padding class is doing. If I were to turn this off, you could see that. If I were to turn this on, you could see just basically put space around the element, right? Another way of putting spaces is called margin. So if I were to do margin 10 pixel as well, notice that these got moved because this is an element. This is spaces that actually shows you outside of the element, right? So if I were to again select one of this, you see that margin is 10, is basically outside of the element, but padding is inside, right? Inside the A tag. So that's the difference between those. If you want to put spaces between the buttons, you will use margin. If you want to put spaces inside the button, you will use something called padding, okay? So just wanted to go over that. So let's say there's another ways to do it. There's some shortcut. So for example, let's say for top and bottom, you want a different size of padding, and right and left, you want different size of padding. You actually have different ways of putting those, right? So if I want to target each of them similar to this, let's say padding top, and I put 10 pixel. If I were to do this, you could see that it puts the padding at the top, right? Again, if I were to put padding bottom, if I wanted to, I could have done this. Padding bottom, it adds it. So you could manually add them one by one, or you could actually put padding like this, and it applies the same element, same spaces for both of them. And again, there are few ways to do this, and padding and actually margin has the same type of structure when it comes to putting the styling of that attribute, right? So there are 2 ways of putting this. If you wanted to just put, let's say, top and bottom, let's say 5 pixel, and right and left 10 pixel. One is to manually put these. So padding actually itself takes 4 parameters, if you could see. So it takes length or percentage. You could take all of that, and again, you could go to MDN reference, to see what padding does, right? In here, it gives you the different ways of you could actually put padding. M is something in other ways of you could put spaces instead of pixel. And then you have the syntax where you put 10 and 0. So that's what we'll use, and we'll talk about what that does, right? So if I were to do 10 pixel, 5 pixel, and 10 pixel, you will see what that does. So let me just go back, and you see it now. If I were to go back and maybe go back to this, if I were to go back to this, and I were to see the style of the anchor tag, you see that I put 5 in text. And if I were to open this up, you see the top, as we want it, right? We want the top to be 5 pixel, bottom to be 5 pixel, right to be 10 pixel, left to be 10 pixel. So by that syntax of 5 pixel and 10 pixel, 5 gets assigned to top and bottom, 10 gets assigned to right and left, okay? If you wanted to do a various, let's say for each side, you want a different padding, instead of doing padding top, padding bottom, and all of that, you actually put that here as well. And one thing to remember, it goes clockwise, starting from the top. So if I want to, let's say again, if I want to put, let's say 20 pixel at the top, I would start off with 20 pixel. on the right, let's say I want to do, I don't know, 15 pixel. So right, see it gets added 15 pixel. And then let's say on the bottom, I want, I don't know, let's say 30 pixel, right? You will see that bottom gets 30 pixel. And let's say on the left, I want 5 pixel. And left, it gets added, right? So that's how you could target each side. But again, just for simplicity, and we want obviously symmetric buttons, so we will put 5 pixel and 10 pixel for the time being. Okay, so that's how you put the padding for each of the buttons. And again, same thing goes for margins. If I were to put margin here, and let's say I wanted margin, let's say I wanted to space between each of these buttons, and let's say I want to push this out a bit, I could put margin maybe left, similar to padding, margin left, and let's say you want to put 10 pixel. You could do so like that too, right? Let's say you want a little space on the top. You could obviously do margin top, let's say margin top to be 10 pixel or so, right? Sorry, not margin. 1 second. Margin top. Why isn't margin taking anything in effect? Right. Did I spell margin wrong? No. So what happens if I just to put 10 pixel? Okay. And let's say 150 and 10 pixel or something. It's probably because I have the consolidated what do you call? Sorry. Oh, okay. It was generic text. It's not. It's because I limited the height, and I'll show you guys that in a bit, right? Why that is. So if I were to put height as 600 or something, you could control the height, and let's talk about all of that. Then we'll talk about this margin, because that's weird. It's supposed to have div. Oh, so sorry. Okay, because I'm trying to put a margin on top of this button, right? So if I wanted to target a margin on top, let's give it a class name for these buttons. So let's call this button wrapper or something. And again, let me show you what do you do with these, right? So let's say I created a class, and the way you target the class, you put a dot and you put button. And if I were to do margin top to be 10 pixel, now you could see space. Okay, I was totally forgetting that I was targeting the actual buttons themselves. Okay, so that's and let's make this a little prettier. Let's put margin left of maybe 10 pixels so it doesn't have that much space. Okay, all right. That's in terms of just the buttons themselves. Let's say you wanted to make these buttons round. You could do something called border radius, and you could actually put this accepts either percentage or amount. So if I were to put 50 pixel, you see that it makes it round, right? If you want it to be a little less, you put 20 pixel, 10 pixel. And as you can see, a little slight, and you can see that, right? If I put 2 pixel, it's very brief. Really depends on what your team expects. So I'll leave it at, let's say, 20 pixel. This looks pretty standard, right? So that's pretty much in terms of the buttons itself. And again, if I were to go to each of this, one thing I want you guys to notice, and this time I'm not holding command. If I were to click this, see it overtakes this page we had, right? So now obviously I have to go back. But if we don't want to do that, and if you want to open it up in a blank or in a new tab, there's something called blank that you could use. So blank, you got to use target equal blank. So again, let's look this up what this does. HTML blank. Okay. So in here, and it tells you, and again, I'm missing an underscore here. It tells you, right, target the attribute specified to open up a new linked document. And by doing this, it actually opens it up in a new tab. So you will see it here. So if I were to, I put blank for profile, right? So if I were to click now, that it opens it up in a new tab, versus if I were to click on view site, it replaces my screen, right? My current screen. So if that's your requirement, you could also have that here too. So let's say I want to have that added to this, right? Now any of those that you click on, it actually takes you in a new tab. So it doesn't really replace your actual application itself, right? And that's pretty standard. Again, to open it up, you don't want to replace unless that's something you need to do. All right, and then let's actually continue with what we were doing. How did it actually put this image and stuff? Let's talk about that. So, and this is pretty much, I mean, I'm just gonna leave it at that. This looks okay to me, sure. That's in terms of anchor tag. Now let's talk about these, right? If you remember, I created this class before, so I called this card photo banner for that reason. So I could actually, use the CSS that I had to, target those. So when I put card, and again, if I wanted to, I could have done, instead of doing dot, again, dot refers to the class name. If I wanted to put this $sign card, you see the design doesn't really change. Why is that? Because we have an ID called card. But if I were to remove this and let's say save, you see that it basically removes the card element, whatever, right? So for that, really depends on what sort of attribute you're using for the element. So let's stick to card again. If I were to put dot, you see that it brings it in place. Okay. So let's quickly talk about what this is doing, and then we'll talk about it, right? So z index, and notice, let's see, what this does. So let's say if I were to put z index equal to 1, if there is anything on the bottom, it basically brings up what the z index is. And if I were to again show you guys the MDN uh, documentation, you could see what this is doing, right? So when you put z index, basically anything based on the number itself, it brings that element to the top. So see, you could see the z index 6. Since it's a higher number, it becomes before z index 4. Z index 2 is underneath 4. So if you ever want an element to be over another one of the ways to do it is using called z index, right? And z index, it's similar to xyz. If you guys were to look at the 3D cube and stuff, z index basically just brings the element forward or backward, right? Let's put that there, and yeah, that's what I did for z index equal to 1. Again, position relative, and we'll talk about what that is in a bit. But these are basically if you want to target some elements, and let's delete this too. I don't want to go over that for now. Position, it's something that you could basically set to different elements to position it in certain elements, right? So again, position, if I were to go here, I could show you that, right? Position takes various inputs. There's something called static, relative, absolute, right? Absolute means no matter what, that element will stay at that one spot. So if I were to put, for example, position absolute, you see that it absolutely drags it down to the side. And if I wanted, I could actually target it however I want to, right? So if I were to do right 30 or something, you see that there's various changes that it does, right? So if I were to put right this and left, let's say 30, top, let's say, I don't know, 5 or something, right? So you could target it, wherever you really want to move it, right? Margin, I'll put this as that. So that's you could actually move the element accordingly based on what you select. If you want something to be at this spot, you could do that using those, right? Now let me remove this as well. Let me just go back to what I had. um, and I'll talk about what remaining of this is doing, right? Again, position absolute does that. If you go to relative, basically just relatively whatever you're putting, it does that. Now, one question you might have is how did I center this? It's by using this trick called margin zero auto. So if I were to comment this out, you see that it moves everything to the left, similar to what position absolute was doing, right? But when you do position relative, you could actually using margin zero and auto, you could center that element, in this way, like horizontally, right? Vertically is obviously something else, but horizontally, if you want to put something, you do that. So that's what that does. Width and the height, as we know, right? It's to set the is to set the how big the box is. So if I were to make this width, let's say 500, it's easier to see it, right? You could see that it makes it bigger. If I were to make 400, you could see it makes it smaller. If I were to do 40, it makes it very small, right? So that's what it does. So let's go back to, and height is the same. Obviously, if I were to put height as, 900 or something, it makes it big, right? Obviously, you can't see it because the background is this color. If I were to make the background red, you will see that it makes the height quite big, right? So that's 400, and obviously if I wanted to see how much that takes up, you could see it takes it up to that point. So that's pretty much what I wanted in terms of just the size of the card. So let's go back to white, and margin is this. Let's say you wanted to make this corners round. You could use this thing that we showed you called border radius. So if I were to do border radius, let's say I don't want this, I don't like this corner shape, I could do 20 pixel, and uh, 1 second. Why is it overtaking the style? Oh, because I have border bottom and stuff here. Okay, we'll go over that, but it's similar to what we did. Card.active, you could set it to certain active cards and stuff. And again, I had quite a lot of things to show you guys, but let's not have this for now, right? If it's active and stuff, you could set that. Let's probably show you something else as well, right? So if I were to do card, let's say hover, right? And again, we'll show you what that does, right? If I were to hover, let's say, and let's bring up hover as well. So let's say CSS Hover. I'll show you guys what that does. So it's basically, these are just CSS selectors that you could use. So when you do hover, you could actually change a bunch of things. And what does that do? And I'll probably will be a good example to show you here. So let's do that here. So when we have a tag, and let's say I have another a tag, and I put hover with this, and let's say when I hover it, I want the background color to be, I don't know, let's say I want the background color to be little darker than this. And again, since I have this, I could change this element, right? That's a pretty ugly color, but let's say just completely choose something different. And again, this sort of designs or decisions are actually made from UX engineer. But I'm just putting this something just to show you guys what it does, right? See, as you can see, when I hover over it, it changes the color of it, right? So that's what I want to show you guys. So this is the benefit of hover. When it's active, basically when someone clicks on it, you could target those as well. That's what the other one was for a little earlier. Okay. So let's not have this anymore. The other thing I wanted to show you guys is this now. So banner, again, if you remember, um, we had photo and we had banner, right? So we're targeting this banner now. So if you were to go back to banner, this is where the trick is, right? To put an image, and I'll show you why we put the index 2. So if I were to comment this out, uh, well, because the other one has the index 3. So let's say I have the index 1 and I have this the index 2. You see how the image comes up as a banner, that's because of that, right? So that's the benefit of z-index, and this is how Facebook used it as well, right? So if you have to put something in the front or the back, you use the index. Since we wanted this picture to be before this, we use index 3, right? And that's really how it works. Card, the whole design of that, it is based on that, right? This one really doesn't do anything, but just to have it popped out and show, we did that, right? So let's go over this now, and we talked about what a z-index is. We talked about what a position is. We talked about margin, right? Margin top is basically to shift this down and up. So if I were to do let's say margin of 150 pixel, you see what happens, right? So if I want to bring this up to the level, you use margin, right? And using negative margin, it basically just brings it to the top to get it to where we want it to be, right? Other thing, we want to use width of 100% is basically we want to take the entire width of the card. That's why position relative is there. And then height is basically the height of the image that we want to show, right? So again, if I want to make this 100, the card gets smaller. This is just a play around with it. So this looks decent, right? Again, let's say I want it to be this big. Let's say I want it to be 100 or something. And I wanted to bring this up. I could actually bring it to, let's say 170 or something, right? Not 170, sorry, 130. And it gradually goes up like that, right? So, 114, no, you could play around with it, whatever, it's needed. I just played around with it to, show you guys what really looked good in my eyes, right? This is where the trick is. So use something called background image to set a background. Again, we use something called background color. So if I were to do background color red, um, 1 second, sorry. If I were to do background color red and comment this out, you see the background becomes red. So if I want to put an image, I could use background image, put a URL, and I'll show you guys how I did this. Remember the pictures that we imported? This is where the structure is. So if I were to open this up again, I put the images in a folder called static. So again, this is the relative path. So since we are under the same directory almost, right? Index and static are on the same level. So that's why I could stay static, right? Static. Then when you put slash, you're basically going inside that folder. And I use banner as the background image. So that's how that came up. And background size, again, there are various ways, and I'll probably show you guys that in here as well. What does background size do? So in here, background size equal to cover. If I don't put cover, look, if I put contain, it takes up the image, then adds it. If I put cover, it extends, it fills the entire width of what I set as a width. Inherit, you could go through all these, but cover is basically what we want to set the entire image, right? So that's what I use cover for. There is something called background position that you could use as well. So let's say background position. Again, see, based on what do you put, your images shifts. So let's say I wanted to put my image from the bottom up to the width. I could use bottom. I could put center to make it center. By default, is center. Inherit left, right. Left and right, since it's a cover, it doesn't really make a difference. But you could make top and bottom, right? So bottom shows that, center is usual. By default it comes like that, so it doesn't really make it different much. Oh, sorry, center, it's not default. Center is it makes it that, right? Another thing you could do, what I'm showing you guys here, is because it's easier to see it rather than coding and coming back. So once I'm done with that, you could actually copy what I showed you, right? You could literally copy this or all of this, and you could replace. So for example, let's say where is the banner? In here, right? Banner. I copy that. 1 second. Banner. Where is banner at? Right here. Banner, right? So if I were to put this here, you'll see that as soon as I save, it makes it in the center. I could put it, bottom, save that, whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. Maybe, we like this better. So let's stick to that. Okay. Active, again, don't worry too much about it. Active is just another class that I had. I will maybe go over more of this because I had a form in here before, but to keep it short and not to, overboard you guys, I just made it simple, right? So there are some CSS classes still there that I kept, right? So we'll maybe in next slide we'll show something better in terms of just the details of how do you probably add a form to this. But for now, just neglect what these are doing, right? So similar to banner, we have something called photo, and again, forget these. We'll show you what each of this does, right? Actually, shadow is fine. We'll show what that does. Okay. Now photo is again same thing. Index, we brought that up. Position is there. Border radius 50%, makes it round, right? So if you want ever something to be circular, you use border radius of 50%. If I do 50 pixel, um, it makes it like that. It really gradually moves down, right? 50 pixel just makes it completely circular. Okay. So that's what it does. And without that, it's obviously square. And just to match what Facebook had, we had border radius to 50%. Okay. And again, the height and the width, we wanted to keep it the same. You could play around with that to make it bigger. Background color, we wanted to make it white, although the background image takes it up, right? In case the image is not there, you will see the background is white, right? So if I wanted to do red, could have done that, but as soon as the image kicks in, you really don't see it. Okay, that's just a fallback mechanism in case the images don't work, right? For some reason, if it gets deleted or whatnot. Again, margin auto is the same. It makes it since the position is relative, it makes the circle in the middle between them. And background size, we talked about this. Background position, we talked about a little earlier. 50-50, you could put a percentage or you could put a center. Center, and it really doesn't matter. Whatever you want to put, you could do so, right? It accepts different ways. Top is 75 pixel, and if I were to put, let's say, 10 pixel, see what happens, right? It moves it up. So that's what that's for, similar to what we did a little earlier, right? And this is for shadow. So I don't know if you could see it, but there is a slight shadow in here. If I were to comment this out, you can't see it now, but if I were to put this, you'll see it. Maybe we could blow something up really bad, right? So let's say 50, 50, right? I don't know, 10, 50. And the color itself too, maybe that's why you're not seeing it. No, you could do whatever you want, really, to be honest. It doesn't really matter. This is for WebKit. Maybe that's why you're not seeing that. So if I were to make these changes in here for Chrome, so let's go back to what we had. If I were to make these changes in here, and let's say I want to make this, yeah, you could see that shadow, right? So maybe show you guys. Let's say I want to make this red so you could see it visually better. You could see the shadow here, right? And basically this is what I thought was important. So you could have some cool effects to it. It really depends on what you want to do, and we'll show you guys more of this, when you really join our course. But these are different ways to do that. In another good thing about Chrome tool is, and again, maybe let me go back to this. If I were to select this and border radius, I have to, because I had it in here. Border radius 50%. Okay. Yeah. So see, I could have some cool, shadows, and you could see it in here. What each of them does, right? You could play around with this directly. You could see it. It's just cool stuff that you could do. So if I were to just move it like this, maybe I wanted a cool, one of those Snapchat filter or something where you have this blurry effect, you could do so, right? And let's say instead of making this, and I could go back to here, spread, maybe I could make it smaller or bigger, it doesn't matter. Let's say I want to make this blur, I could make it blurry, right? Once you're happy with what you have, you could actually copy this and paste it where it was there, right? So it was here, and it was here and here. You basically, when you do border shadow, any sort of shadow, you basically just put these for, this is for Firefox. WebKit box shadow supports I think Edge or Internet Explorer and Box Shadow is pretty familiar, pretty similar, and it works in most of the modern browsers, right? So that's, you could have that effect. Let's say I don't want this color, I want something, I don't know, this color or something. See, it changes that color. Or maybe let's say I want something bluish. Why not, right? You could do so, right? Um, so, and again, for this to works, so maybe let's see, put this here, right? So it works in any of that. I think the other one was for old browsers, Firefox and stuff. You could put those. So let me make this a little smaller so I have a little more space for me. And another shortcut, by the way, for VS Code, if you were to highlight something into Command D, it basically selects that and you could post it. So all of them has the same styling effect. Okay. And obviously you can make it different color. It doesn't really matter. You can make it this shadow. You can make it white. No matter. Whatever you're happy with. Maybe let's stick to this white thing. I like that better. Really your preference. And put it. That's in terms of what that is. Card UL. This is if I don't have this, let me show you what this does. Right, again, forget this active one. Card UL, if I don't have this, see what it does, right? It remember those weird design that we had with the dots. Basically, this is a target that UI element, right? I mean UL element of card. And the syntax of this is basically, it says card is the class name, and right after that, right inside is there is something called UL. That's how you're targeting the UL elements. If you want it, obviously you could have given UL a class as well, then target that, obviously. But you could do so like this as well, right? List style is none. If I don't put this, see what happens. You have this bullet point. That's how you hide that. Text align center. If I don't put that, the text are in the left by default. You could put that. Padding left is basically to put no padding. Margin top is to put the padding on the top. Margin bottom. We talked about all this. Font size is to make it font. You could make something bold as well. So let's say font font weight, right? Font weight, let's say 400 or something. I don't know if you guys saw that. It's slightly more, a little bigger, right? So if I were to comment this out, let's say put 200 or something. See, it makes it very small. So if you want to make something bold, you could do so that way as well. Maybe let's stick to this. Let's say I wanted to make it this, but I want to make Mohammed Minhas bold. What I could do, there's HTML tag called B that you could use. So if I were to wrap this up in the B tag, which stands for bold, it makes it a little thicker, right? Sorry, I missed this, and right here. Okay. Um, Li. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, you can make it like that too. It really doesn't matter, whatever your preference are. There is something called Italic. So again, to show you guys what that is, CSS Italic, right? So once you search for that, it will show you. So in here, font style normal. So you could use something called font style Italic. So let's say I wanted to, and I'll show you what that is, right? If I put Italic in here, you will see that it makes that, Italic style that that we know from Microsoft Word, right? So you could do that in here. I think there is I believe HTML Italic tag. I think it's I. Yeah. So, in here you could do that too. So let's say you don't want that at a CSS level. And let's say for some reason, you wanted this to be italic, right? So what I can do is I put this here. Again, whatever design you want to put, or whatever tag, you got to put it wrapping whatever you want to present, right? So if I wanted to make this italic, and I could do so like that, right? And it makes that a little slided. It obviously overrides some of the it overrides some of the CSS, but that's how you could do so, right? So those are the two different ways you could do it. And then what else do we have? There's I. In here, I is basically each element. So in here, if I wanted font size to be, let's say, 45 or something, you can make it bigger, right? Um, then display inline block is to make this each of them a block. So if I don't put this, it really doesn't make a big difference, but it takes the whole width as a as an element, right? Then obviously we talked about all these with text align uh, left. This doesn't really override it because its parents is taking it control into account. Actually no, this is ul and I. Sorry, this is for the other link that I had, right? So card I is basically if there's a I element or italic element. That's why this design was there. I think I totally forgot to show you guys that. So let me go back to what I had. So if I were to do, since I'm putting this I tag, it's basically saying go to UL, then find whatever I is. So that's what this is for. So let's say I want this font to be 55 or something, right? You could make it huge, so you could target it like that as well. Let's say I don't really care, so it basically uh, sticks to this font size that we had before. Margin align left, it basically brings it left. If not, whatever, it moves to the right, right? So text align, and I could put a center if I want. It really doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do. I just wanted to show you guys that as well. Okay. So this is fine, and you could obviously change the color as you please. Let's say we want to make it bluish or something. You could do so, right? Uh, so maybe something like this. Yeah. So that's how you control each of those elements. Let's say this is too big. You can make it smaller or bigger. Doesn't really matter, right? Let's say we stick to 25. Text align left, you can move it right or left. Okay. um, so that's how you control it. And let's say we don't want this or something, maybe 35, make it 35. It's too big, maybe 30. you know it really doesn't matter. You could just play around with it and see what do you prefer. There is a margin left that you could see here. That's why it pushed the element to this side a little. So if I were to comment this out, you see that it pushes to the left all the way, right? So if I were to put center, and it brings it up to the center. Okay. That's in terms of the card and the eye. Obviously, there was something called contact that we pulled out earlier. So if I were to go back in here, this button called contact, right? Maybe we could call this add story or whatever you want. Really, it doesn't really matter. You could change those elements in here too. Okay. So margin 0 and auto is basically, again, it centers it. Text align center. This basically text targets what element it is. But if the parent has a text align center, you don't really need to worry about that, right? Margin top is to bring this up a little. Width, again, is 100%. If without it, if you want to make the button entirely, you could do so, right? If we were to do border radius to 20 pixel, you could make it round. It's really opportunities or whatever you want to do with it. Really doesn't matter, right? You could do as you want. I'm just giving you guys tools for you guys to be able to use it, right? So let's say we don't want the border radius, we like it the way it is, or maybe slide radius, right? Let's say 2 pixel or something, or maybe 4 pixel. Makes it a little curvy. It's cool. Font family, it's basically you're inheriting whatever the font that you provided from whatever it was, right? This is the button color. Again, we talked about that, and font size, we talked about it, right? If I wanted to make it a little bigger, I could do so that way. Okay. Um, and then hover, there's some hover effect. So as you saw right here, when I hover over it, this cursor thing that I'm moving, it becomes like a pointer. That's what this does, right? So that's just a best practice to indicate that it's a link. So button, I'm doing that, right? So if you want that effect, you could do so. So these, you could do that as an anchor tag. It comes with it. And focus, if you were to focus, and you could show outline 0 just to highlight. And I'll show you guys that as well, what that does. So by the way, if you wanted to trigger, let's go here. If you wanted to trigger some of this hover and stuff, you could just click on hover and click on this focus, and it basically brings that up, right? So there was an outline in here. If I don't put that, you see this blackish background, blackish outline. That's what it does. So when I put outline 0, I could actually hide that, right? So that's what I did that for. That's pretty much what I had, Zunaid. Anything else you want me to go over in terms of this? And maybe next live we'll talk actually more about JavaScript itself.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really a lot of helpful information. I'm sure like a lot of guys today learned about the basic HTML, CSS,
Mhm.
how to make a box, grid box, play with the CSS stuff. So yeah, I mean, that looks amazing. So yeah, I mean, with this, students can basically work with the CSS grid box, where you just have to create like separate boxes. You guys can just do it this way. Um, yeah, I mean, the buttons, colors, and everything, it looks like amazing how to change the colors, how to work with the IDs and classes, the divs and stuff like that, how to grab like an individual div and then create a class in order to just change the colors or something that you just want to do, the margin, border, padding, how to use the div tools using Chrome.
Yep.
You showed everything, so I'm pretty sure the students today learned pretty quite a lot how to use the dev tools in Chrome. That's really that was really helpful. That was really amazing. Thank you, Minhaz.
Nice.
Also, students, you saw like how to just like do all this CSS stuff using the dev tools, which is gonna be like pretty easy for you guys, instead of like go back to your VS Code and just like change it and then come back and see how it looks like. But if you can, if you learn how to do it from the dev tools, from your Chrome dev tools, that makes a lot easier.
Yep.
So yeah. Um, so yeah, today it was a basic HTML, CSS, and on next slide we're gonna go over the basic JavaScript and stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and whoever missed this live workshop, guys, when you watch this, try to practice at home. Try to just make it like different boxes. What Mina showed you guys. Also, I just want to go over this as well. I've been talking to a lot of students. A lot of students messaging me and also was talking about the course structure and everything. And one thing I just really want to tell you guys, there is no shortcut, because a lot of you guys ask me if I can do this such and such, and if I can finish it like in a month or 2 months, or if it's like a free course. Like if there's anything you would like to learn, you guys always have to remember this. There's nothing as free. Either it's finance, either hard work, your effort, everything. It takes time, it takes a lot of effort, hard work, practice, or else like you guys won't be able to be successful. You want to be a web developer, you want to be a software engineer, or you want to be a quality assurance engineer. You guys have to work hard. There's no shortcut, guys. I'm telling you guys this again and again. There's no shortcut. Some of you guys ask me, oh, can you just like give me the direction? Yes, obviously we can give you the direction, but it will take time because you have to practice every single day. In order to be like really good at this, you guys have to practice every single day. It can take like, I would say like 3 months if you practice like 10 hours a day. It could take like 6 months if you practice, I would say 3 to 4 hours a day. So it all depends on you, but there's no shortcut, guys. So yeah, I mean, those who have questions about like if you guys can finish it in a couple of months, like a month or two, no, it's not possible. It will take time. So for those who are also interested in joining the course, please reach out to us. You can send me or Minhas a direct message, or you can just also contact us through our website or Facebook page. We also created a group. You guys can join the group. We post like a valuable information in that group as well. So whatever you guys watch today, try to practice at home. And if you guys have any question, you guys can message us or you guys can get back to us. We'll just try to help you guys. And our next session is going to start in Jan. So please, guys, make sure you guys prepare yourself, because for those people who want to do the full stack software engineering, you guys gotta go through a preliminary test that we guys gonna give you to practice, and we just want to see you guys how much do you know about coding or HTML, CSS, things like that. So next class, on next live, we're gonna just do basic JavaScript. We're gonna go over basic JavaScript stuff, data types, booleans, if like if else statements and stuff like that. So try to just like join our next workshop. It's gonna be a very valuable information on our next live. So stick with us. And if you guys have any sort of questions, please don't hesitate to just reach out to us. And we really appreciate those who guys are trying to do this by yourself and trying to watch this live with us and asking all these questions, reaching out to us and asking all these questions. Doesn't matter what kind of question it is, we're happy to answer all your questions. So yeah, I mean, today what Mina showed, it was really helpful for all these students who knows HTML, CSS, or those who don't know actually. You guys can just watch this and practice at home, because this is the beginning, guys. And one more thing, you guys might feel like nervous. You guys might feel, well, someone said you can do this again and again. A lot of students who I'm talking to, it just feels like you guys are confused, which is okay. So all I want to say this to you guys can do this. And it's not something that's impossible. It is possible for anyone and everyone if you guys can put some time and put some effort and try to just stay focused. So yeah. So you want to add anything else, Vinas?
Yeah, no, thanks for, touching up all on those points. As Zunaid said, we just showed you in a live demo, right? For those of you, who didn't know anything, I've literally showed you from a ground up, how do you build something very small, right? Obviously, you could expand it to as much as you want. You could create different links, different websites. Maybe one day we'll do that. How do you just create a sample website with HTML and CSS? But the basics that I've shown you today, it's all you need, right? You use this sort of tools again and again, and you get better at it, right? There are just a bunch of tools out there that you use to make the design and how to interact with it better. That's from a majority of the front end developers too, right? There's obviously back end, full stack that we talked about, but it's from a front end layer point of view. Just with HTML and CSS, this is what you do. Obviously, this is not the best ideal way to create a site. That's where you need to learn React and stuff that we'll talk about, right? And the benefit of that. But these are things you need to know when you're writing React code as well, right? For those who has been, watching our live, again, if you guys have any questions or suggestions, do let us know. If you guys want us to build something, let us know, give us a heads up, and we'll obviously, build it and present it to you guys. For those of you who are interested in joining, again, these sort of workshops are important for you to know the basics or to brush up on it, because as Junaid said, we will give you some screenings, right, where you probably will be asked to create something similar to this, right, where you just go through the basics and show us that, yeah, you have some sort of a knowledge, and it's important when you build up something like this, you could build up your portfolio even better to say that, hey, I know how to build this Facebook card, or it's just the basic that I've shown you today, but obviously you can make it a fledged application to show that, right? The goal is to onboard you guys so you could build, live projects that we showed on our first live. And that's something that you could always show. That's what it's going to make you stand out rather than other people who just knows the basics, right? And again, this is quite easy. Every time you learn something new, it might be difficult. Maybe, there are some things maybe I went over today that might have confused you. Just watch and try to code along, right? That's how we tell our students. I pretty much wanted to show you in a live rather than just and just coding and not show you or just talk about it. So I just built this in a little card to show you guys what it does. So hopefully, it was beneficial to you guys. It was, hopefully, you found it more interesting. This is just the beginning, so stick to us. For those of you who join our WhatsApp group, keep in touch with us. Obviously, we'll let you know what are the next steps. For those of you who wants to join, contact us. There are various ways to contact us. One, you could just go to our website. You could contact us there. For those of you who are watching the live, either contact us through Facebook, or just go to MZ Tech website. I mean MZ Tech Facebook page, and message us there. And yeah, our course is going to start in January, so keep in touch. And again, just bear in mind that we will screen you, and we'll obviously select um, people to a certain extent, right? We're not gonna, as we said, right, our motto is to keep the class small, so it's first come first serve. Obviously, if there's a lot of students, we'll have to open up another session that might get delayed a little. So if you're really interested, let us know, and we'll start doing the screening process very soon. Right. With that, I'll again like to thank you guys. Hopefully today's demo and live was beneficial. And if there's any sort of feedback, we always live up to feedback. We are always accepting feedback. So do give us those. Okay. Thanks, guys. And Junaid, go ahead, wrap it up.
All right. Thank you guys. So see you on our next live. So yeah, stay up to date. Join our page and our group. It's MZ Tech. You can look at our Facebook page, and also you can join our group and stay up to date about our next live. So until then, stay safe and have a good night, guys. Bye.
Nice.